Good evening. Before I begin, I'd like to thank the Parents League, Denise Dutton, President, Deb Falcone, and Anna Vischer as the Vice Presidents, Tiffany Monterulli, Treasurer, and Samara Rizk as Secretary. What you've done so far this year has really helped us get the year off to just a wonderful start, building a lot of great momentum with parents, with our students, and with our faculty. Also, Teresa Pelosi and Michelle Savino. Did they?
They had to leave.
They had to leave. Okay. Well, again, they just did an outstanding job in bringing the school together. On Academy Day, it was a wonderful event. I know as a parent, it was a wonderful event, and as a head of school, it was great. I want to start today. I was reading a book called The Element, and it was written by Ken Robinson. And he starts The Element with a story about a child that doesn't do very well in kindergarten. And one day the teacher notices that the student is actually really engaged in class, and she's drawing away. Keeps drawing, and the teacher all of a sudden becomes sort of interested and says, wow, this child has never shown an inclination to learning. What is she doing? And so the teacher goes up to this kinder student, and she says, what are you drawing? And the kinder student looks up and says, God. And the teacher says, how can you draw God? You can't draw God. No one knows what God looks like. And the kinder student said, they will in 3 minutes. So with that, I want to start with what's really happening at our school, in our lower school. I think if you look at our school, and this is starting pre-K all the way up through 12, I think that our students have a great confidence in their own imaginations. And I think what's really neat about a small school is that you can cultivate those imaginations from K all the way up through 12. So that teacher probably wouldn't be able to teach at our school, because our teachers would be encouraging that kind of imagination. Now, down the road, what are we looking for? Well, obviously, 21st century themes and skills are what our students are going to need if they are going to have a life of fulfillment. What does that mean? They're going to have a life that's driven by innovation, knowledge, and information. And what's important about that is that they develop mastery, and they will get that here at Staten Island Academy, because what we don't want from our students is to follow the beat of somebody else's drum. So we are really trying to get our students to think creatively and individually. Their creativity will be the key to keep them ahead of robots and computers, because we know that robots and computers will replace all forms of routine work, and that isn't what we want for our children. We want them to be leaders in the world. So we will encourage them to employ ingenuity in whatever project they undertake while they're at the school. That said, technology is going to complement leaders and entrepreneurs at the highest levels. And in order to compete at the advanced economies and in innovative industries, our kids are going to have to be able to be versatile and creative. I'll give you an example of what happened one day at an assembly at one of my previous schools. We had an alum who was working for Pixar. And we were talking about eliminating silos, and I'll talk about that later on in my talk, which is something that we want to eliminate here at Staten Island Academy. But Pixar, the alum came and he said, so you guys think that you don't have to know all kinds of things like math, art, history, all in one kind of gobbledygook. And the students were like, yeah, we hear that all the time, but that never really happens. We never integrate what we're doing, whether it's English and history or art and science. You know, we always talk that we're going to do that, but we never do it. Well, at Staten Island Academy, we're going to do that. And the example that was so powerful for me was the Pixar alum, I'll call him, said, okay, you math whizzes, I'm going to put up a mathematical equation. He projected this huge mathematical equation. All our math jocks were working on it. You know how when you're in high school you think you're smarter than everyone, right? They were trying to figure out the equation, and he said, nope, wrong, nope, wrong, nope, wrong. And then he said, I'm going to press a button, and you are going to see the answer to this equation. He pressed the button, and there was an animated figure. And he said, if you want to get into art, if you want to be in high technology, you better know math, because that mathematical equation is that animated picture. So we're talking today about a whole new world and how our kids are going to have to think. They're going to have to be able to combine math, science, English, art, if they are going to be the innovators in their lifetime. Problem solving and critical thinking. Well, how does that happen? You know, it sounds, complicated. Well, it's not complicated when you're a school our size. One of the wonderful things I've been seeing at this school, you have classes of anywhere between 8 and 16 kids. You need to start at a very young age training young people how to think. And I have been at large schools, I've been at medium schools, but I've yet to be at a school where we really are challenging our students to develop these 21st century skills. When you go to a classroom at Staten Island Academy, because of our small size, you will see teachers making sure that our students ask pertinent questions, identify all sides of an issue, recognize and define problems sometimes without complete information, using their intuition. They want them to search and use data to arrive at a reasonable judgment. So our students in the classroom already are supporting innovation. One of the things that I would like to encourage in our classrooms, as far as getting a grade, as far as class participation, I'd like to keep a sort of a running track of the best and most original questions students ask in class, because those kind of questions are the questions they're going to need to ask for the rest of their lives. So, what's happening here and what do we need to encourage more of? Creativity, critical thinking, and problem solving. What's wonderful again about our teachers is we're right there, hand in hand with a student, so we can give them that critical feedback. Critical feedback only counts if it's timely. If a teacher gives you feedback a month later, it's too late. And our students, our faculty are constantly giving students information of where they fall short, why it falls short, and how to fine-tune it. And I think that immediate response to our students, again, helps them to develop their creativity. Not only that, if you come to our school and you see the environment we have, it's a gentle environment. It is a nurturing environment. So what happens to some of these students that lose their imagination, that lose their dreams? It's because they weren't nurtured. And what's happening here on a daily basis is we are nurturing our students. So they're prepared to be wrong. And you know what they say, if you're not ever prepared to be wrong, you won't ever do anything original. And so with that in mind, our faculty are looking toward the 21st century. We also know that given all the information out there, we have to develop capacious minds so that they won't be overwhelmed with mass information. Think about all the information a young person is bombarded with on a daily basis. And what do they do with it? Well, the leaders are going to be able to synthesize it and distill it. They'll be able to synthesize it so that it makes sense to themselves, and then they can make it make sense to others. They can distill it because they'll know what is bunk and what is true. And so we are highly aware of that in our classroom. So the most important attribute in leadership, in the 60s they talked about John F. Kennedy's charisma. Leadership in our children's lifetime will be who is the best problem solver. Won't matter what your personality is. Well, hopefully you'll have a nice personality coming from Staten Island Academy. But really, being a problem solver is going to be one of the huge issues. Now, we talk about things such as language. Obviously, and we're in this art room, we want our children to be able to express themselves in multiple languages, in the English language, but images. Images are going to play a huge role in our students' lives. They're going to have to be able to interpret not just language, but all sorts of images. They do that now. Talk to your children. They'll see an image and they'll tell you what exactly it means when you don't know what it means. So we will be working with that. Now, down the road, one of the reasons why we want to eliminate silos, and when I say silos, there are all kinds of different silos in schools. In many schools, especially pre-K through 12, you have the pre-K through 4 silo. You have the 5 through 8 silo. You have the 9 through 12 silo, which ends up driving parents crazy because they've been at the school 12 years and they're looking at 3 schools. And they're saying, well, wait a minute, why does the school keep changing? Well, we want to eliminate that. We want it to be one school vertically, and we're working on that. That's our first project that we've decided to undertake in the school. We also want to eliminate silos horizontally. Why? Well, because in order to exist and succeed in the new world, our students are going to have to develop great mental agility. And in order to develop mental agility, you are going to have to do art, science, math, history, English, all at once, and be able to balance them in order to negotiate the constant change that our students will encounter. I was just reading an article today about a 18th century scholar, English literature, and they now have a new field in English literature which is called literary neuroscience. They're trying to use neuroscience, MRIs, to determine what 18th century characters were thinking and doing. So we're applying science to 18th century literature today in colleges. So that's something to think about. Now, here's something to think about your children. People between the ages of 18 and 42 will have 11 different types of jobs in their time span, in their lifespan. Probably more. We're just saying that today. With the acceleration of nanotechnology and new technologies, that number will probably grow even more. Moreover, we don't even know what some of the jobs our children will be doing in this brave new world. I go back to a story my wife told me when she was in medical school. And when she was in medical school, she was working, you know, she was very studious, very, you know, anal. Okay, I always say, you're too anal, relax, relax. No, she's got to be perfect, taking all these notes and redoing the notes and almost memorizing the book that she's reading. I said, you don't have to memorize it. Well, no, I want to make sure I get it right. But they asked their professors, they said, wow, you know, this is just so much information. How in the world are we going to use all this information? And the professor said, well, you're not. 50% of what we're teaching you probably won't have any application and won't have any meaning in your working career. And they said, so? Can't you eliminate 50% of what you're making us learn? He says, that's the problem. We don't know which 50%. So this is what our children are up against. And that's where I found our kids, and I have a blast with the kinder kids. I knock on the window, they get excited, they have all these, you can see their minds working, it's electric. But what I can tell that's happened in kinder already is they've already had a powerful learning experience. And all the most successful people tell you, what was it that made